You've tuned into Unpause Your Life with Dr. Callie Estes. Your access to success strategies and more to help you move onward and upward with your life. Listen in each week as she interviews others who have really taken their essence to the next level and truly unpaused their life. Now here's your host, Dr. Callie Estes.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. This is Dr. Callie Estes, and I am founder of the Addictions Academy, the Addictions Coach, and Rehab Rescue. Welcome to Unpause Your Life. This is a great podcast where we showcase people who have done something extraordinary with their life. I welcome you, and I hope you enjoy all of our guests.
On my way, found a reason to wake up another day.
Before we get started, let's hear this short message from one of my supporters.
All the things that you won't do.
Did you know 81% of Americans would like to become a published author? Chances are you might be one of them. What's stopping you? Writing and publishing a book takes a lot of work and is expensive, right? Well, not anymore. For your next book project, or even your first, team up with Hassle-Free Books. They make it so easy to become an author. They remove all of the fuss and struggle and make it smooth and simple. And it's far more affordable than you could ever imagine. Go to hasslefreebooks.com and use promo code UNPAUSE to receive a 10% discount off of any book project. Get started right away and become a published author in as little as 45 days. For your free 1-hour book formula guide, which will show you just how painless it can be to become an author, head to hasslefreebooks.com today.
All right. Thanks again for joining me. Let's get started with today's show.
Took a walk down the dark road where they said that I shouldn't go. I knew the dangers of life.
You are listening to Unpause Your Life with Dr. Callie Estes, the Addictions Coach and the Addictions Academy. My guest today is Dr. Vera Tarman, and she's the Medical Director of Renascent, Canada's largest drug and alcohol residential treatment center. Dr. Tarman is currently overseeing Renascent's unique 28-day live-in treatment program for women with food addiction. She's the author of Food Junkies, The Truth About Food Addiction, and has spoken internationally on the subject of sugar and carb addiction. Welcome, Dr. Tarman.
Hi, Kelly. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you. So you're covering the least talked about of the addictions, which would be food.
Yes, that's right. It's the least talked about, but I think probably the largest addiction is it's the one that's not noticed or not talked about, as you said.
True. So tell me how you got into this. What sparked your interest over the other addictions?
Okay, so there's the personal story and there's the professional story. And I'll start with the personal story because that's where I noticed myself that there was something that just seemed like an addiction that was happening. You know, I like many young women, had struggled with eating and dieting when I was in my 20s. And I got into a real obsession around it in a way that in those days, this was in the 70s and 80s, I would have been called a bulimic or a binge eater. And that just never rang true for me. And it wasn't until I got into the field of addiction on a professional level that I, was introduced to the concept of addiction, and that really rang true for me. So once I started to view things that way, I started to notice it in other people. And sure enough, I noticed it in my patients. I work in a treatment center where I see many, many, many new people. Some people are returnees, but I'd say probably about 1,000 people every year that I do assessments for on addiction. And because I was particularly interested in this subject about food, I would, along with asking about other drugs, I'd also ask them about their sugar, specifically sugar. Invariably, I didn't do an actual study, but I would say more than half of the people would say, yes, I had a problem with sugar, or now that I put down my drug, boy, do I have a problem with sugar, and I can't stop. And then I would start talking to the people who are doing well. They'd put down their drugs, or that they were coming back because they couldn't do well. And it seemed to be that sugar or food was a bigger problem than their initial problem of drugs. And finally, when I started getting really interested in this subject in terms of actually writing about it and talking about it, I started asking in a general way about history. What about before you picked up your drugs? And often sugar was the first culprit that people talked about. It's just that if you don't use that language, you don't think of it that way.
Do you think that has something to do with these treatment centers that have vending machines? Down here
Oh my God.
in the U.S., we've got Monster and Rockstar and Skittles and Honey Buns and Ho-Hos and you name it, it's in the vending machine.
Yeah, it's in the vending machines, but it's even in the literature. Like in the AA literature, there's a book that's called I can't remember the name of it now. It's a yellow book, Living Sober, I think it's called. And what they say in that, it's an old book. It's from the 1970s, but people are still using it. It says when you have a craving, eat a candy, like eat candy. It'll work. It'll make the craving go away. And I don't think they knew what they were doing in those days, but it's like the vending machines that, you just substitute your addiction. You don't think it's an addiction, so you think it's better, but really it's the same thing, that it's the same phenomena. And the bad thing about it is that if you don't see what you're doing, your just general addiction is just getting worse and worse and worse. And, we always talk about how addiction is chronic and progressive. Well, if you're eating sugar in between your various addictions, that's the thing that's moving the whole phenomena along, making things worse, I think.
I agree with you. And the hard part is you can live without alcohol. You can live without meth or heroin or Xanax. You can do that. You cannot live without food. So
no, that's true.
It's very difficult. Once you get it under control, it's still in your face all the time, everywhere you go.
Absolutely. I mean, you can live without sugar in the sense that in your house, you can not have it in your house, and, you can just not eat processed food, and you can avoid it that way. I mean, we're talking about excess sugar, not the sugar that's in fruit and vegetables. But you're right. The moment you walk out of your house, it's everywhere. And, it's probably like it used to be with beer in the Middle Ages. It was easier and safer to drink beer than drink the water. And I think a lot of people feel that way about food. It's just easier, cheaper to eat this garbage, which is only making addiction in general worse, like the whole society, kids especially.
Yeah, and a lot of people coming out of treatment too don't know how to cook or how to take the time to prep. So they go to the grocery store and they get the fast, easy. That's Pop-Tarts for breakfast, Hot Pockets for lunch, and they don't feel good. And they say, I don't feel good. And there's a correlation there. So tell me, what do you do with patients that come out of treatment that don't know how to navigate the food and know how to properly purchase food and how to cook food? What do you do with those clients?
Can I just back up to what you said a second ago, which is also really interesting, and then I'll go to that question. People say they don't feel good. So what does the doctor do then? They say, okay, well, we'll give you meds. And then what happens is those meds, which are typically antidepressants and anti-anxiety and antipsychotics, make you want to eat even more, so that the cycle just gets worse. Or not the cycle, the momentum just gets worse and worse. And so the best idea would be to not do the meds, or at least not as... First, try the food, which is eat proper, what we say, eat real foods. Don't eat processed foods. And how do you do that? I mean, we have to learn how to shop. It's actually really quite straightforward from a theoretical point of view. Just don't eat processed food. But my understanding is that you can, I don't live in a small town, but you can live in a small town where the place where you can buy real food is like across the town, but your convenience store that has all those Pop-Tarts that you were just talking about is just downstairs. So it means having to have a mindset of, I'm willing to make the time and the effort, the plan, prepare, protect of my food plan to eat well. And we don't have that mindset. We have the mindset of just do it real quick on the way to work, on the way to a movie, at the movie.
Right. And
we have an attitude about eating that is no longer, it's to squeeze in somewhere to fill in our time, but not in the way that is healthy for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you seeing people in general with their food addictions telling you, I don't have time?
Yeah.
I need to go, I feed my kids McDonald's because who has time to make breakfast?
Yeah, you know what's crazy about that? You're right. That's absolutely what people say. They don't have time, and also it's too expensive to eat healthy, fruits and vegetables. But what I don't think people realize is how much time does it take to look in the mirror and hate yourself, and look in the mirror and not be able to fit into your clothes, and spend the rest of the day feeling awful about yourself, or going to the gym and spending 2 hours on the treadmill or whatever it is. Like it's a question of trading off of time, because if you're eating well, you're feeling good. So you've got lots of all the time that's being spent worrying about your diet, worrying about, how many steps you should do on the Stairmaster later, worrying about, all that stuff is no longer being used. So you've got lots of mental real estate to use for other things. I don't think people get how much time they use being depressed and trying to make up for all the bad food they're eating.
I agree. And I think we spend a lot of time fooling around on social media, on Facebook. Someone will spend 2 hours on Facebook looking at memes and tagging themselves in, but won't spend that time making a decent meal. So priorities have shifted in that sense as well, I think.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. And one of the things that you've probably seen this in your own clientele, when people actually get clean and sober, one of the things they say is, I got all this time, what am I going to do with it? Because they're not spending time scoring or whatever it is. So now what we're doing is saying, you have the time. It's just a question of how you're going to use the time. If you spend an hour a day, it's almost like food prep in the morning is like a meditation. Use it like that, and then the rest of your day is yours entirely to be non-obsessed and to do something else that's actually to your benefit.
Yeah, I agree. And it's difficult getting people out of that mindset where and then they say, you can't take everything away from me. I gave up drugs. I gave up alcohol. I'm giving up smoking, not giving up my donuts. And
yes, I know. But the thing is, it's because they feel they still need something. And if you're not feeling bad about yourself, you don't need stuff in the same way. Like you don't need to spend that hour on social media validating yourself, because you're actually out hanging out with people or doing something,
Right. So what do you do with that client that's come through treatment that says to you, I've given up drugs, I've given up alcohol, I've given up smoking, I'm not giving up, my pizza, my Pop-Tarts, my junk food. How do you wean them off of that?
Well, it depends on, because the treatment centers that I work at, it's multi drugs, right? So it depends on how open they are. Like I'll say to them, okay, fine. You want to just get off of your opiates and go on Suboxone or do something like that. That's fine. And you want to keep eating as well. Fine. It's a kind of harm reduction approach. You want to stop and get off the whole wheel, the wheel of misfortune, basically. If you want to get off of the addiction thing, just for the time that you're in the program, the 3 or 4 weeks, stop sugar too, and just see what happens, because it actually doesn't take that long. It only takes a week or two for you to notice. I mean, it takes longer to get off of it, but to notice the appreciable difference so that you're willing to go out there and keep it up. And the people who are willing to do that are usually like, wow, I can't believe I feel this good. So it's how open the person is. I would offer it and just say, do you want to do a harm reduction approach? Just do the basics to stay alive, or do you want to get off this thing? And if so, you're going to have to do sugar too. But just try it for a week.
Yeah. I remember when I quit sugar, my first 3 hours, I got this. This is easy. This is great. Hour 4, I started getting squirrely. And I remember thinking, this can't be from sugar. By hour 8, I was laying face down on the floor, swearing to God I was dying because I felt so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then hour 12, it was why, then you're negotiating and you're bargaining, and why can't I have a little bit of this? And, and I remember I had a little bit of apple pie and I ate the whole pie. And that's it.
Kelly, so because you had your own experience, but can you believe that in the literature, in the addiction literature, the people who say, no, food is not an addiction, one of their main arguments to say that it's not an addiction, it's not about the science, because we've got the science to show that it does the same pathways, the brain pathways. What they say is, clinically, there's no withdrawal. And it's like, you got to be kidding. Are you kidding?
There's withdrawal.
Yeah. What you just described was the classic withdrawal. You just got to ask people and ask the question, how did you feel in hour 8 and hour 12, hour 24? And when did you start feeling? It's not that much different than alcohol or any of the other drugs.
No, it's not. And I work with a lot of heroin addicts, and I tell them quitting sugar is very similar to quitting heroin. I had headaches, I had nausea, I had insomnia, I had night sweats, I had a foggy brain. I remember that like day 4, I was in such a fog, I didn't know if I was coming or going. And I thought, this can't possibly be detox. And then I started, researching my symptomology, and I said, I'm in detox. I'm detoxing off the sugar. And then I remember, when I was off of sugar, and I had about 6 months off of sugar, and I went to eat, because I'm a food addict, I went to eat Ben and Jerry's. And of course I said, I'll eat the whole pint. It's not a big deal. And I was in the bathroom for 3 days. And that's when I learned how powerfully addicting sugar can be. And I'm always amazed when people say, there's no addiction to it. There's sugar in everything. Everything.
There's sugar in everything. Yeah. So, there's a classic example of withdrawal, what you've described. And the other way that I can tell clinically when there's a real addiction for a person is, especially if there's a history of addiction in the past, the person has stopped their drug, whatever it is, they start eating and then they want their drug again. Or they find that, like for example, if a person is eat sugar, they can't drink because that will make them eat again. Or it's the same thing. Like people would say, I only do cocaine when I drink, or I only do I drink when I do cocaine. And we see the same thing with food. So when a person has another addiction, sugar is a real gateway. It's a real gateway. It's one of the reasons why I really worry about what we're doing to our kids. Like, I'm convinced that what we're doing to our kids now with the amount of food that we give our kids, who are growing up on those fruit tarts that you're talking about, they're going to become opiate addicts in their teens. We're setting it up, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And the crap that's in McDonald's down here and Burger King, I'm probably going to get sued one day by these fast food places, but the crap that's in there that just, it requires them to keep coming back, the taste, and more and more and more. And I have a 23-year-old client that every meal is fast food. And I said to him, your organs are going to shut down from all the formaldehyde in this food. And he said, there's not formaldehyde in food. And I started showing him all the studies of what they're putting in the food, how they wash it with ammonia and bleach and all that. Yeah. I made him watch the pink slime video from McDonald's. And he looked at me and he says, well, I'll die young and I'll die happy. And I looked at him and I was like, that's the addict mentality.
Yeah. But the crazy thing is he's not happy, really. Yeah. He's got a buzz of happiness for 20 minutes while he's eating. And then the rest of the 23 hours that he's got left until he can eat again, or probably he'll eat in another hour anyway. He's not happy. He's feeling bad. The addict feels good only in the first little while, and then the rest of their life is spent just trying to feel normal, and then not even feel normal, just not feel awful. What a way to live.
Exactly. And then when I ask them, after you eat an hour or two later, are you tired? And they say yes. And I say, do you feel angry or aggressive? Yes. Do you feel cranky? Yes. Do you feel depressed? Yes. Okay, that's because you ate 2 donuts. Oh, no, it couldn't possibly be the donuts. Yes, it could. Yes, it is. And
that's right.
Yeah, when they stop eating that stuff, they feel fantastic. It's just...
we talk a lot about how if you get people to stop eating, they'll get off their diabetic medication and their cholesterol medication. But I actually think that you can also get them off their antidepressant medication and all their other psychiatric medication, because it's treating those symptoms that the withdrawal is creating.
I agree. It's tough down here in the U.S. because when we start talking about that, people say, well, you can't manage your health with diet and exercise. And I always say, yes, you can. Absolutely. Yes, you can. If you're exercising and you're eating properly, you're going to feel good. And if you feel good, you want to feel good all the time. You don't want to feel good a little here and there. So
that's right.
If you learn those habits and you learn, what foods make you feel good and which foods don't. I have one young lady who for years told me, she's like, when I eat yogurt, I don't feel good, but I know it's good for me. And I said, you're probably allergic to dairy. Stop eating yogurt. And she goes, but it's good for me. And I said, stop eating yogurt. And she quit all dairy and she says, I feel fantastic. I said, okay, your body doesn't process dairy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and our body does not process well the stuff that we're eating. It's not just the formaldehyde and the pink sludge that you were talking about. It's just the fructose, the amount of sugar that people are eating. Even fruit sugar is too much, the amounts that we're eating, especially if we're doing it in fruit juice and stuff. Our bodies are perfectly tuned to a non-processed food environment. It's not tuned for the stuff that we're eating today. We're killing ourselves by the food we're eating today, even if we're not food addicts.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And I had one client, I took them off of soda for a week. So you're just going to go for 1 week and then you can have all the soda you want. She says, oh, that's fantastic. So 7 days, no soda. On day 8, she poured herself a cup of Coca-Cola and she called me. She's like, I can't drink this. It's disgusting.
Wow.
And I said, yeah. Your body doesn't want that. So now tell me about this book. You've got this fantastic book. I was reading it. Tell me what made you want to write the book.
So Food Junkies, The Truth About Food Addiction. I'm actually writing a second edition now for it. It was prompted because I was starting to talk here in Canada a lot about food addiction, and people would just, as you know, kind of scratch their head and go, "Why you can't be addicted to food?" And then, say, "Go away," basically, because they either don't believe it or they don't want to hear the message. It's either one, right? I don't believe it, or I just don't want to have this conversation. And I just kept getting told, "Vera, you got to write a book. You got to write a book. That's when people take you seriously." And writing a book is quite time consuming, and I didn't want to because I have a very busy clinical practice, but I did want to get out the word. And when I wrote the book, which was with the help of a fellow colleague in the States called Phil Wardell, who also works in food addiction and has since the 70s, so he gave me a lot of clinical experience. Then people started taking me more seriously. It's like, oh, okay, there's a book. It's odd that that's the way it is today, I guess. And it made me finally allowed me to have conversations with people that were more. Just people took it more seriously, and then once that door was opened, it was almost like you open the door and people start to listen, and then they get it. It's like once you really start to listen to this conversation, it just feels intuitively right to a lot of people, as it did to me. So that's what prompted the book, and it's what's prompting me to make the effort to write the second edition. And then I see that there's so many more people now like yourself who are out there talking about the very same thing. I mean, it's great. We're finally at least being listened to. I don't know if we'll have much influence with the food industry because that's our major, there's a big investment to not listen to our message, from business. But at least we're, here we are, the two of us talking to each other. At least we're starting to join up and recognize that we're all talking about the same thing. And the enemy is not us. Like, let's stop blaming the victim, which are the people who are diabetic and obese and whatnot. We just keep calling it obesity. We're blaming the victim. Let's start calling it, this is the food industry that's killing the human race, ultimately. I mean, I'm being very bombastic here, but the point I'm trying to make is it's not us, it's industry, in the same way as the opiate addiction, these poor people who are dying. It's because of the whole push to using the oxys in the 90s. It's the whole opiate. We did it to us.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Oh, we did. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's point the finger to where the problem is, and then we can actually make some changes. Like if we close down whoever it is that's making the fentanyl that's killing people, if we start focusing on that as much as we are on the people that are dying, I think we're going to save a lot of lives in the future. Similarly, with food addiction, let's start looking at changing the food environment so that we're not making patients for doctors, diabetics, in 5 to 10 years from now.
I agree. I completely agree with you.
I didn't to be political, but I'm getting more political the more I'm in this field.
I've tried to stay out of politics because I have a no filter. And when I talk, I'm very passionate about what I talk about. So I stay out of politics, religion, and anything super controversial because I usually get myself all wrapped up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, tell our listeners where they can find your book and where they can find you.
Okay, sure. So I'm easily found on Facebook. It's just Vera Tarman. And I have a website that's called addictionsunplugged.com. And then, of course, the book can be got on Amazon and again, it's Food Junkies, The Truth About Food Addiction.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the show today. I will have everything up and have all your links and everything for our listeners.
Thank you, and thank you very much for inviting me to come to your talk. I've heard a lot about you, and I'm really, really thankful that you've asked me to speak.
I'm very glad to have you, and thank you for listening to Unpause Your Life. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. I really hope you enjoyed the show today. Head on over to iTunes and Apple Podcasts and leave a comment or review of what you think. Or contact us at 1-800-706-0318. If you want to be on our show, feel free to email or call. And if you have a topic, feel free to email or call as well.
Thanks for listening to Unpause Your Life. For show notes and more, head on over to unpauseyourlife.com.
Big shout out to recoveryinnovators.com for help producing this show. Thank you guys.
I took a walk down the long road where they said that I shouldn't go. On my way found a reason to wake up another day. But they needed to show you all the things that you won't do. Find faith or religion, but nothing to show for it. No need to escape in love with my pain. I may be awake, but I'm alive, still alive, and I won't be bound by your mistake. No, I won't be your enemy, trapped at the gate. Bring me to life, put me to death. Just give me something that's just not so hard to believe. To believe. To believe. I took a walk down the dark road where they said that I shouldn't go. I knew the dangers of flying. Now I'm so far from solid ground. But they needed to show you all the things that you won't do. Find faith or religion, but nothing to show for it. No need to escape in love with my pain. I may be weak, but I'm alive, still alive, and I won't be bound by your mistake. No, I won't be your enemy, trapped at the gate.